Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's we're going to be talking about what is going to happen to all of these vehicles that are sitting on lots waiting for microchips or just other accessories or whatever they need to make it so they can be shipped out to dealers or to customers. Before we get into this video though, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. If you want to see more content like this, I recommend you subscribe because I post videos every single day. Let's get into it. Now, this is a question that is on everyone's minds, and that is, when will this issue actually be resolved where, all of these vehicles sitting on lots are going to get what they need to get and they're going to go to dealerships and go to customers. And here's the deal. In the short term, what's going to happen is they're going to continue to sit on lots. Okay, I had to say it. But anyways, the whole microchip issue, it's still an issue. I know that it's not as much on the news as it was before, but it's still a really big issue. A lot of automakers are now projecting that the 2023 sales year is going to be worse than 22, and 22 is already worse than 21 when it comes to overall volume. And, again, microchips are definitely a bottleneck. And if you just look at Ford's press releases, it basically shows that they're cutting a bunch of options from a bunch of their vehicles so that they can slightly produce more because, again, microchips are such an issue. And it's crazy the scale of how many of these vehicles are sitting on lots. General Motors reported earlier this year that they had almost 100,000 vehicles on holding lots. Ford was like over 50,000 vehicles on holding lots. And every single time it seems like the inventory start to shrink, then all of a sudden something happens and then they start to balloon again. And so here's the deal. I do have to say that we are going to have to slightly put on our tinfoil hats for today's video because we do have to kind of dive into some tinfoil hat type stuff. But I think that it can lead us to a conclusion that can somewhat make sense with, what's going to happen with this whole situation. Now, we have to go through three different scenarios with this whole situation. Scenario one is that there are even less microchips. Scenario two is that it just stays the same. And scenario three is somehow we all of a sudden get more microchips. So in scenario one, where let's say that the microchip supply decreases even more, which again, that could potentially happen, what that's going to do is it's going to make automakers axe obviously a lot of production, and they're just going to move things around. And because the market's already kind of pulling back from more fancy, expensive vehicles, then I don't see it being too far-fetched where automakers kind of focus on building more baseline vehicles that just require less microchips overall so that they can, build as many vehicles as they possibly can so they can make as much money as they possibly can. And so, again, in the first scenario, it would definitely decrease overall manufacturing volume. And I think that it would push automakers to focus building more baseline vehicles that are frankly going to sell in today's market with what's happening with the overall demand of what people want. And pretty straightforward. Now, if we go to the second scenario where let's say that basically the microchip supply stays the same, then what I see potentially happening is automakers basically adjusting to make it so that they are producing as close as they possibly can to like the perfect amount of cars where everything is sold. And with this system, we could see a lot of automakers basically going, okay, long term, we're done with giving dealers inventory. We are only going to fulfill customer orders once they are, fully committed to a vehicle. And so this would basically ensure that manufacturers are not building what's not going to sell, and they're only building what people are actually going to take delivery of. Now, this is obviously easier said than done because it's really difficult to basically go from producing one type of vehicle in a factory to producing another type and then back and forth, right, depending on, what's actually being ordered at any given time. And so, yeah, it'd be pretty difficult to implement, but it could be a way that manufacturers could kind of get around the fact that they just simply don't have enough supply. And I guess that could also apply to the, situation where microchips basically decrease in overall supply. Now, if they increase, then this is obviously best case scenario for everyone. And this means that automakers can just ramp up manufacturing volume, and all these vehicles that are sitting on lots, they can get them the equipment that they need, and they can get them on dealer lots and into customers' driveways. And well, everyone is happy for the most part. But this situation is slightly dangerous in the fact that if it happened at a rapid enough rate, then you're going to see a bunch of vehicles flooding the market in terms of new vehicles. And so that is going to decrease the price of new vehicles because, again, supply and demand, but it's also going to decrease the price of used vehicles because people are now going to be able to get a new vehicle where they weren't able to get it, before, right? And so they're going to be like, why would I buy this used car with this amount of miles when I could just buy the same thing brand new for the same price? And so the used prices will have to go down to compensate, right? Now, if you're wondering my personal opinion on the situation, I think that the middle scenario is the most likely right now, where supply is pretty much going to stay the same. Like some months it might be a little bit higher, some months it might be a little bit lower, but for the most part, it's not really going to change all that much. And now this is where we dive into the whole tinfoil hat type stuff. So here's the deal. There's a lot of people that are saying that automakers are purposefully doing this because they want to basically arbitrarily keep demand sky high by not producing as much product. And I just don't think that this is practical for any automaker, because this would assume that all the automakers are like all colluding together and saying, okay, we are all going to not produce as many cars so that we can keep demand high. And again, that's just not in the nature of automakers, because it's a super competitive environment and they want to be the best, whether it's building the best product or selling the most vehicles. And so it just doesn't make any logical sense. But something that is a little bit more realistic that I've heard is people saying that automakers are basically just going to rebadge these vehicles and sell them as new model year vehicles. And that's why I see rebadge. So like maybe it's a 2022 sitting on the lot right now, and the 2023 model year rolls around. Well, then the manufacturer just slaps a 2023 badge on it and then sells it as brand new and acts like it wasn't sitting on a holding lot for 6, 12, 18 months, however long it was sitting in the lot. And again, I definitely see that happening. And I mean, we already saw that happen with Broncos, right? Because Ford built a bunch of Broncos. They sat in the holding lots for months until they were able to get, the hard top or whatever part it was that they needed. And they got shipped out to customers. And that same thing happened with some of their trucks as well. And again, it's not just Ford, it's other manufacturers on top of that. But point being is these vehicles sat, and so you had these new vehicles getting delivered to people that were like rusted out, and sometimes they had different damages on them and everything. And so I could definitely foresee that continuing to happen into the future. But the most interesting thing that I've actually, and this is one that I actually, again, is tinfoil hatty, but I kind of buy into, is that these manufacturers are basically going to start fulfilling customer orders with these vehicles that are sitting on holding lots that were not what the customer ordered, but just so that the manufacturer can sell a vehicle right away and get rid of vehicles on the holding lot. So I can't say where I heard this information, but let's just say that I've heard stories of different people that ordered vehicles with certain specifications, with certain options, in a certain color, interior and exterior, and when their vehicle got delivered to them from the manufacturer, it was completely different, like different exterior color, different interior color, and different options. It was at least the same package that they ordered, but significantly different. And the manufacturer claims, oh, well, this option was on restriction, this option was on restriction, and this option was on restriction, so we had to build out your car differently, but we're going to give you a car so you have something to drive. When in reality, again, the whole tinfoil hat thing is that manufacturer had that vehicle sitting on a holding lot, and then they got enough microchips to basically put that vehicle together, and then they realized that, oh, this is just a dealer inventory vehicle. Let's just flip it to that customer order so that we can just boom, get a sale right away and just move on. And so yeah, it's kind of an interesting scenario to think about, but I've heard quite a few people that are taking delivery of vehicles that were not what they were ordered, and a lot of people are starting to back out of these orders because they're like, I ordered a white pickup truck with a tan interior, and you are trying to sell me this silver pickup truck with a black interior, and it doesn't even have the right powertrain. I've heard some pretty crazy stuff. So I want you guys to let me know in the comment section below if you've had anything like that happen, where you ordered a vehicle with certain options and you didn't get those options, or on top of not getting those options, you pretty much got a completely different vehicle delivered to you from the manufacturer. And with that being said, also let me know what you think is going to happen in terms of the short term and the long term with this whole holding lot situation. Do you think that the holding lots are just going to continue to build up with inventory, and then the manufacturers are just going to start churning them out and selling them as new model year vehicles, even though they're not? Or do you think that they're going to just end up having to just eat it and crunch the vehicles? I think that would be too difficult, because It's a lot of vehicles worth a lot of money, but that's going to sum things up. I'll see you.